Welcome to section 2.5, applications of percent. So before we could do any kind of example, any kind of work of percent, I want to get down with the basics. So from the formula that you learned in middle school, which was part divided by total will equal to percent. So I want to give you out different forms because depending on the given problem that you have to set it up according to what you have in order to find a specified part. So what I mean by specify is, for example, you would use this depending on what problem is given, and say you're looking for percent, or say you're looking for total or part. Here you would probably use if you're looking for percent. Here, again, depending on what kind of problem you have, you might use this if you're looking for part. So it's going to be part equals percent times total. Here, you would use total if you were given part out of percent, or given part and percent in a word problem. So they all connected, as you can see with the arrows. So you can go from part over percent equal to total into part divided by total equal to percent. The only difference between these two, you notice how percent and total are switched. It only works if it's the denominator. So it's kind of like formulas with chemistry. Total and percent can switch places and still work with each other. Now here, to go from this part, this first formula, to the second one in orange, basically I multiply both sides by total to get part by itself, or isolate part. So part is equal to percent times total. So again, they're all connected. It's just using basic algebra skills to isolate certain parts. Here we're looking for total, here we're looking for percent, here we're looking for part. So make sure you have this in your notes. Be familiar with all three forms. But if you are perfect with your algebraic skills, then you can work with this given formula that you learned in middle school to isolate for part, to isolate for total, and to isolate for percent. So in our first example, I'm going to work with number 5 from the independent practice. So number 5 says, at $450 per month, a student pays $5,400 a year in rent. If his annual income is $15,000, what percent of his income is spent on rent? So I'll give you a moment to copy this down, or pause the video to copy this question down. I highly recommend that you copy the word problem so that you're able to identify what information to use when you're studying for your upcoming quiz or upcoming test. So given a word problem, how would you pull out the information, or what ways you can set it up? Alright, after copying down the word problem, let's take a look at the question. The question is, what percent of his income spent on rent? So going on that word problem, going off his equation, let's write out the information that we do know. So what percent of his income? So when you're looking at the word problem, what percent of his income? So his income, meaning his annual income, $15,000, that's going to be his total. So his total is $15,000. Now, it says, what percent of his income spent on rent? So basically, we're going to look at what is his rent. So it says that he spent $5,400 a year in rent. So that's going to be his part. His part will be $5,400. And then the percent, that's what we're looking for. So if we're looking for percent, then the formula we're going to be using is part divided by total will equal to percent. Now, keep in mind that since we're working in percent, that if you were to work with this in a calculator, it will give you a decimal value. So pay very close attention when I'm working this out. Make sure to take note on how to go from decimal to percent and vice versa, meaning going from percent to decimal. So I'm going to set up the equation. So part, it would be 5,400 on the top, and then 15,000 on the bottom, the denominator, looking for percent. So when we're looking for percent, basically, we're going to set up as a long division problem. So I'm going to write right here. So our denominator would be on the outside, 15,000, and then 5,400. Alright, now 15,000 does not go into 5,400, so what we're going to do is we're going to put 0 on the top here. Since I'm going to add another 0, I'm going to put a decimal right here. So make sure to line up your numbers carefully. Now, does 15,000 go into 54,000? It does. So if I were to calculate this correctly, 15,000 can go into 54,000, my mistake, 54,000 3 times. So I'm going to put 3 above the 0 that I wrote in. So 3 times 15,000 will be 45,000. So 54,000 minus 45,000 will be 9,000. Next, I can't have 15,000 going to 9,000, so I'm going to add a 0, bring it down, so now it becomes 90,000. 15,000 can go into 90,000 6 times. So 6 times 15,000 will be exactly 90,000. And my remainder is 0. So our percent, so it'll be 5,400 divided by 15,000, or 5,400 out of 15,000 will be 0.36. So that's the decimal value. Now in order to convert into percent, I'm going to move my decimal 2 times, only 2 times to the right, which will be 36%. So bear in mind that it's 36%. So if you were to go from decimal to percent, you move the decimal to the right. Now if you were to go from percent to decimal, I would move my decimal to the left 2 times. So keep in mind that to go from decimal to percent, move the decimal point to the right 2 times. If you're going from percent to decimal, move the decimal starting from the 6 to the left 2 times. So when you're going from either of those two, you basically move in the decimal twice, depending on where you start and depending on where you're going, left or right. So take note of that. My final answer, percent, is 36%. So 5,400 out of 15,000 is 36%. That's how much is spent on rent.